Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co-hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
Your resume, first of all, is not you. Your resume is a piece of paper that just tells us a story before you actually tell us the real story. I would recommend using LinkedIn as not just a platform, but your portfolio. LinkedIn is your pitch deck.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast, season 3, episode 27. The spring and summer of 2026 has allowed us to stretch our lists of guests, and that list continues to grow. Today, we are very excited to welcome Veronica Alfred to our show, a global talent acquisition specialist and people strategy leader for Prenuvo. Veronica has had a hand in building scalable, inclusive teams in a variety of sectors, including technology and healthcare. And with this thing called AI, some people may or may not have heard of this before, but becoming more and more prevalent, especially in the world of finding work, Veronica is experiencing something called talentless recruitment. What does that mean? Well, I even have no idea what that means. She's going to tell us what that means. So, Veronica, thanks for joining us. And the first question we have is, can you give us an overview of your career story and specifically the unexpected twists and turns that I am sure you've experienced along the way?
Awesome. Well, first things first, thank you guys for having me. This is definitely going to be fun. A little bit about my journey into the world of HR. So I started off studying microbiology. Yes, studied microbiology. If I'm being completely transparent, I barely made it out of university alive. Okay, just kidding. Well, actually, maybe I did. Like a lot of people graduating, I kind of felt like, I thought I had my life figured out, everything, the I's were dotted, T's were crossed. I was going to go work in a lab or something. After university, I dabbled into different roles, different types of roles out there: sales, marketing, business development, quality assurance, even program management. I would say all these experiences were what I would professionally describe as deeply humbling. I wasn't going anywhere. At the time, I felt like, everyone else had a good, better plan than I did. I struggled. I wasn't feeling fulfilled with anything I was doing. But then, the opportunity hit me and it came to work with a HR agency. In my head, I was thinking, what is this? What is HR? Okay, well, I showed up for this interview and I did. I remember stepping into the room and seeing a bunch of professionals sitting there, all suited up, everyone looking very serious, and I was like, what was I thinking? I definitely am not getting this job. Why am I here? But somehow, some way, sat there, went through series of interviews, even a verbal, written test, different things. And let's just say I got the job. You know, at first I was like, okay, this is cool. But then a few minutes later, I'm thinking, well, this is going to be a few steps back. It feels like it's not the natural progression here. It doesn't look good on paper. When people ask, what do you do? They're expecting me to have progressed and moved on to something greater. And this feels like I would be going back because it was almost like an entry level HR role. But you know what? I think thinking about it now forward, I'm thinking those experiences or those opportunities that are actually going to lead to more opportunities, they never really come looking pretty. They actually do come looking very uncomfortable and, very crazy and unexpected. Well, I'm here now. But one thing I wanted to say was while job hunting and looking for this fulfilling job or this job that was actually going to make me happier, I did meet a lot of people who had great skills, were very smart, very well versed in their fields, but they all had the one same struggle. They all struggled with landing the job, finding the right job, or even getting interviews. And I remember saying to myself then that, if I got the opportunity to be on the other side of the table where I'm finding people, I would definitely be excited to pair the right people with the right careers, put the right people in the right jobs. So, of course, it just felt like I had found my calling in terms of jobs. Since then, I have worked across different organizations from small, mid-sized, large corporations, starting off in recruitment, onboarding, people management, strategy. I'd like to say that now I am, yes, like you described, a global talent acquisition manager working for an MRI imaging company that does have entities across the world, managing a team. But on the flip side, I would say I'm also part-time CIA, MI5 as well, because it just depends on the week. And I say this because recruiting today is no longer just, assessing talent, sourcing talent, finding talents on job boards. Now I'm an investigator. I'm a digital forensic analyst. I'm also cross-checking profiles. I'm a detective, CIA. I'm looking at profiles, cross-verifying things, looking at different portfolios on GitHubs, validating reference checks, asking so many questions. So at this point, I will say I don't even know if I'm hiring. I'm just trying to prevent an international cybercrime. But yes, this is my world now. And, as a recruiter, I'm excited to share more about my challenges and where I'm today.
And I think I want to follow that thread, that CIA MI5 detector thread, because this isn't a flavor of what we've really talked about in depth before. Not on this podcast. I think we've hinted at it, but Paul and I have done the majority of our recruiting before we needed to be that level of detector. And so tell us what this talentless recruitment means, because it's what you're talking about. And we've hinted at this phrase. Tell us more about it and link that to the CIA MI5 skill set that now you're developing.
Yes, sure. Talentless recruitment, I would like to describe as a growing phenomenon of candidates who actually don't exist, or more precisely, don't exist as presented. So right now, present day, we're not just talking about someone who exaggerated their titles or stretched their employment timeline. We've moved past that. We're well past all of that. Now we're dealing with AI generated resumes that are technically perfect. We're also dealing with deep fake video interviews. Talent pipeline isn't real anymore. And what makes this genuinely interesting or terrifying is how sophisticated it has actually become. I can give you some real-time scenarios. You have someone apply to a job, you review their resume, everything looks good, skill sets, company, everything. And they come in for the first initial conversation, and within the first few minutes, you can tell that they're reading from a screen, and AI bot is generating these responses. So there is no the natural pauses aren't there, genuine reactions aren't there. It's just a script they're reading, And then on the flip side, there's a candidate who goes past preliminary interview, goes all the way to a technical stage that involves maybe live coding if they're an engineer, and they're using an AI bot to actually generate the code. They're thinking, maybe the engineers aren't going to pick this. And then there's the other opposite side of the coin, where you do have someone who goes through the entire interview process, skills through, everyone loves them, they're great. And on day one, someone else shows up for the job. So yes, these things happen. These aren't like stories that are being made up. They're not hypothetical. They're not edge cases. They're really happening every single day.
Wow. That is that is wild. So Veronica, you and I just met at the start of this recording today, 10 a.m. So
Yes.
we don't know each other too well, but you may come to find out that I am fairly direct and straightforward. I think that could be the stupidest thing that I could ever hear from a candidate's perspective, to go through an interview and then somebody else shows up for the job on day one. I can't in any world think that would be a good idea, or know anybody that thinks that's a good idea. That is quite something. I can't imagine. I spent almost 8 years in recruitment, and it was like before computers were born. I think I'm just joking. It
Yes.
wasn't that long ago, but I can't imagine the amount of content and stuff that you have to go through just to get a person in through the first stage of the interview. When you think about all of these candidates, you've spent many years doing this now, and I think that especially in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had an exponential growth in, AI assisted resumes, cover letters. You see those
Yes.
funny things on TikTok where somebody's like smearing their camera so they can't see, and then you see the AI kind of building a script based on the question. But when you think
Mhm.
about it, what percentage of candidates would you say come across in this more like air quotes talentless space?
That's a very good question. I don't think there is like clear-cut data that actually says, hey, this is 70 or 80%, because it largely depends on what you would define as fraud or misrepresentation. What I do know is 76% of hiring managers today globally have encountered falsified candidates, and 50% have dealt directly with candidate misrepresentation. So if you're talking about full identity fraud, AI assisted misrepresentation, proxy interviews, fabricated experience, or simply candidates who are just using AI tools to improve how they present themselves, it goes anywhere from the 50% to 70% being fraudulent. So I know current research that I pulled up suggested that about 15 to 20% or 15 to 30% of applicants' pipelines are actually fake. So I can tell you for a fact that some of the tools, okay, this is actually great because I did actually implement a tool recently to actually help with fraud detection. And one of the sub tools that come under this major system is the Clear ID verification. I have ran within the past month or 2 months, I have ran about 245 checks and the maximum is 250. So I have done 245 checks, and I can tell you that 50% of those checks came back with high risk or medium risk signals. And when I say high, medium, or low risk signals, it goes anywhere from AI bot traffic, IP address doesn't match country where the person is applying for, IP address has been flagged for fraudulent activity or suspicious activities, names do not match on the IDs. Also, digital numbers. People are generating digital numbers to apply for jobs. Actually, there's one funny incident that happened, and I was shocked myself because hiring for engineering roles now is like, you're trying to find sand in the middle of the ocean, you know. And for this one role, I have been looking for like staff level engineer who has all the skill sets, programming language, everything. I found this great candidate on paper. He had everything, checked the box in terms of location, years of experience, programming languages, tech stack. And I ran the fraud report and I had a high risk signal. And all these things listed: suspicious activity, IP address, not matching, AI bot traffic on resume, AI generated resume, different things. And then I'm like, but wait, these companies where he's worked are actually real companies. They're the Amazons, the Lululemons, and the likes. And then I decide to go into LinkedIn to find this person. And I search on LinkedIn. And the first thing I see on the guy's page is a pinned post saying, I am not applying to your jobs. I have not been looking for a job, and I'm not looking for a job in the next 1 to 2 years. So whoever it is that's applying on my behalf isn't me. And imagine my shock when I see that. So it's like someone lifted this guy's profile, lifted everything from his page, and is applying for jobs. Now, some companies may have the sophistication to be able to pick these things up or even afford these tools, but some companies don't. So they might actually go through the entire process with someone else who is not the person.
Yeah. So I'll go with Paul's straightforwardness and go, holy crap. Like, holy crap. Like, I also recruited back in the day, not quite as long ago, and I was not having to deal with like near that amount. So what's the impact? You've been so fascinating stories. Both Paul and I's eyes are like saucers. Like, oh my word, that this is so normal. I think this used to be in the periphery, right? Happened every
Yes.
once in a while. Now it's happening 50% of the time or more. So tell me what the impact is to you What gets
Mm,
harder for you? What happens to your ability to recruit well? Just like what's the impact here for you?
great question. I feel like you said, this was a thing of the past. We probably would deal with maybe one scenario once a year or once every 6 months. Now it's every week, every day, and it's largely affecting different stakeholders here. I would say there's the effect. It's impacting the recruiters, it's impacting the hiring managers, and it's impacting the organizations as a whole. But there's also the other part that people don't notice. It's affecting the legitimate candidates as well. On the recruiting side, I would say there's the recruiter burnouts. Recruiting has moved away from just sourcing candidates, finding candidates, going through initial screens, having those fun conversations, getting to know people. Now we're having to play the roles of, the MI5, the CIAs, we're cross-referencing platforms. We're going the extra mile to verify people, even reaching out to networks to say, do you know this person? We're having to build out more extensive and rigorous interview processes that not just ask situational questions, but also require people to provide real, deep responses to specific scenarios. We're having to cross reference LinkedIn's, we're even deep diving into more extensive background checks as well. And we're having to cross train teams every week or every month when something new comes up. Just last week, I stumbled on a post about voiceovers now. So people are even manipulating their voices for the interviews. So I have to put together training modules to be able to bring my team up to speed on things like this. Now, on the hiring manager side, there is distrust or, mistrust. They don't trust the hiring process anymore. They don't trust the candidates. I'm seeing a lot of hiring managers moving away from international hiring or remote hiring into more local hiring, finding candidates in areas where they actually reside. Now, on what does that do for us? It limits us to a little box. Now we have to stretch to find people within that space. And most times, supply, they say, doesn't equal demand. So it's harder for us to even sell or to find the right people. Companies are spending ridiculous amounts of money now on different systems and tools in order to be able to set up spaces to be able to detect fraud, to analyze AI profiles. We're even spending more on reference checks, background checks. But the real problem here is the legitimate candidates are suffering. They're not getting up to the top as well.
Yeah. It's man, the we knew the world was changing when it came to hiring, and Tiffany and I in many of our classes we talk about the impact of just simply hiring on a workforce. It costs money, it costs time, it costs all of these things. And now it's even more so for maybe a candidate that doesn't even exist, which is just wild and baffling to me. When we think about these legitimate candidates, these real candidates that want these roles,
Mhm.
so we know that we have to have a resume and a cover letter. This is going to be a sidebar. Paul made a comment in class that he thinks that in 5 years from now, I'm speaking about myself in third person, and I don't know why. But in 5 years from now, we are not going to have resumes because I think that it's just like, what's the point of it? Because
Yes.
everybody, I could literally go on to my favorite large language model right now, and it will build me the best perfect resume in 2 minutes. It will, and so easy. So, but what can these candidates that are really truly looking for great opportunities, what can they do? What can they do to stand out? What can they do that's maybe a little different than the more traditional look on a job board, have a resume and a cover letter and apply?
That's an amazing question. I always say this to people when I speak to them. Your LinkedIn, your resume, first of all, is not you. Your resume is a piece of paper that just tells us a story before you actually tell us the real story. I would recommend using LinkedIn as not just a platform, but your portfolio. LinkedIn is your pitch deck. Um, we underestimate the power of networking. And I will start by saying, that's how I got here today. I met someone who knew someone who actually connected with me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I want to suggest a podcast. People underestimate the power of networking, going to events, speaking to people, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, selling, talking about yourself and your achievements and the things you're doing on platforms where people are looking and people are paying attention. LinkedIn is a huge resource for me and is a huge resource for so many people. Beyond LinkedIn, there's so many other platforms and networks and groups. There's Slack communities, there are Facebook groups, there are different platforms where you can go on and actually sell yourself and talk about the things that you do. Beyond just the resume, like you said, in a few years' time, resumes are not going to actually exist. So people are really looking, even present day now, I have a lot of hiring managers who are not keen on the resumes. They're keen on seeing portfolios. They're keen on seeing their LinkedIn profiles. They want to see where they've worked. They want to see the people they are connected to. They want to see the kind of projects they've worked on. And in my opinion, you can do all of that with social platforms. You don't need a piece of paper to sell. Going to events, speaking to people. I never underestimate the power of talking about what I want and where I want to be. I go into rooms and I'm telling people where I am, what I do, what I'm looking for, because you never really know. Someone there is paying attention. Someone there might know someone who knows someone who might actually be a referral. And I'm seeing that the recruiting world has moved strategically towards referrals. Hiring managers believe so much in referrals, regardless of if the candidate has 50% of the skill set they're looking for. They're more confident and they're more comfortable and at ease to talk to the referral versus the person who just came up with a beautiful resume, 2-page long, has all the bullet points and everything. So there's a lot of trust in your network. Utilize your network more, speak more, talk more about the things you're trying to achieve and the things you've achieved on platforms where you can actually do that.
I'm gonna just say one thing. Tiffany and I should give each other a virtual high five to each other because we have been talking about this at tremendous length. We even reduced the amount of classes that we are teaching around resumes and cover letters and doubling it in building relationships and networking. And so it's so cool for us to hear that like we are on the front edge of like what we are teaching our students. And then it's
Sure.
like clarification from you that like I guess we're doing the right thing. So it's like thank you for like helping us identify that we actually know what we're talking about. It's very
Validating us.
wonderful.
Oh man, never has it been more important to be able to sell the fact that you are human.
Yes.
Like we used to sell skills, we used to sell experience, and now we actually have to sell that we're human. Like what a bizarre change in the recruitment
Yes.
world that we're selling that
Yes.
we're human. And we're doing that not on resumes and cover letters. But that makes me have a really interesting question. So I think most candidates don't realize this is what's happening behind the scenes, right? Our students certainly don't. Paul and I, for heaven's sakes, aren't, I think, fully in touch with what you all are dealing with on a daily basis. Thanks to you, we are now more in touch. However, with a candidate that doesn't know this is happening, is there something that they are doing, a real true candidate is doing, that is actually tripping off red flags that you guys are looking for that we may not realize comes across that way, but maybe does? I don't know. Is there
Yes.
anything?
There are, which is very strange. These things didn't matter before, but now they do matter. So you're putting together a resume or you're applying to a job. We do have questions around, let's say, share your LinkedIn profile. Some people would say they don't use LinkedIn. Some people would say they don't have LinkedIn profiles. And so for some hiring managers, I'm sorry to say this, but that's an immediate no. They don't want to talk to you. Also, I know we've talked about AI a lot here, and there are pros and cons to using AI. Yes, we may not have the best way of selling ourselves. AI can help us sell ourselves on a resume, and that's fine. But when you do get into that conversation or that initial conversation, that's your opportunity to actually make yourself be more real. Talk about the real life scenarios. Share data, things that actually matter. But one thing I do notice is that there's some candidates who are real, but it could be that they ghost us as recruiters. They go silent. That's a flag on its own that screams red flags. I always say to people, I had to spend some time with a candidate recently on a call, talking him through the ID verification process and some of the things that show up for us. Mismatching name, mismatching location, mismatching email addresses. Your clear ID verification you did 2 years ago had a different email address. And today you're applying with a different email address. That could come up as a red flag. Your location, your IP address could be a problem as well. You got married, you changed your last name. That could also be something that some people would say, okay, name is a bit different. So even as a legitimate candidate, there's different steps that you need to take. It's not just, we've moved away from just applying, hitting the button and applying and saying, hey, they're going to call me. Now you need to also reach out to people and talk to people, build a relationship.
Can I make a quick connection there? Because students often ask, I'm applying for a role in Toronto. I'm currently in school in Edmonton. I have family in Toronto. Can I just put Toronto at the top of my header? And, there's ethical, do you, don't you, as like, gray area, yes, no. But now people are picking up IP addresses. Your IP
Yes.
address is in Edmonton, but you just said Toronto. Like we were never
Yes.
doing that deep. You would ask someone, where do you exist? But you
Yes.
don't check that. Now we do.
Yes. Now we do.
Wow. It's it is such a fascinating world. We could, gosh, I feel like the three of us could sit here and do one of those 3 hour long podcasts, and it'd be really fascinating.
I would.
I have one last question before I'm going to head into, or you and Tiffany can head into the lightning round. For
Sure.
those kind of heading into the job market now and into the next few months, what's the most honest thing that you can tell them about the environment that they are walking into?
First things first, the job market is more intentional now, more competitive, more scrutinized. Unfortunately, you're not in competition with the professional that graduated 2 years ago or the professional who has years of experience. You're in competition with AI, and AI is huge, and AI is extremely smart. So I would say to people, standing out is no longer just about being polished on paper. It's all about being visible. Visibility is important. Being verifiable is important. Being consistent is important. It doesn't just stop at hitting the button and saying, hey, I applied to the job and the recruiter is going to review my resume and get to me. Reach out to people, follow up, connect with hiring teams, connect with hiring managers, engage consistently, treat every interaction as a potential doorway, not just a transaction. Because in the environment, opportunities are not just applied for, they actually are assessed through other people. Candidates who will stand out today are not just qualified, but they're mostly human and they're visible, but also they're very vocal about what they're doing, what they would like to do, and what they've done.
Thank you for that. I think sometimes students are just looking for that, or people heading, just like, tell me, just be honest with me. What am I walking into? So thank you for that.
Yes.
I agree with Paul, and I actually think we should have some more conversations like this because I think this is some of the information that we need to make sure is getting out there to students. But we don't have the time right now. So let's head into a lightning round. You ready?
Sure.
Do it. 3 quick questions, 3 gut answers. What is it about your career story that has given you the biggest boost?
My first startup work, it was a lot of building and it was a huge learning curve for me.
Cool. What do you wish you'd learned sooner?
Advocating for yourself isn't arrogance, it's just information. People can only champion what they hear and what they know.
All right. Service is so important to Paul and I, so we always love to end here. How is service going to show up for you in the coming week?
Honestly, I'm just going to be celebrating the small wins, regardless of what it is, completing that first call, talking to the candidates, moving to offer. It's all a win.
Love it. All right, Paul, you're up. What's your random question?
It's funny when you can tell Tiffany wants to ask more questions, but then she's like, I'm in a lightning round and I'm not allowed to. And so I, as an observer, laugh at that. So, my question, we've learned a lot about Veronica as the human resource recruiter, the knowledge sharer when it comes to the world of recruitment and development. My question is, what is maybe one or two things outside of this world of business that you're in? What are some of the things that you're really interested in outside of the recruitment
Oh,
world and things like that?
oh my God. Two things, wine and music.
Oh,
I always
nice.
say to my friends that if anyone was going to kidnap me, just have a few bottles of wine placed somewhere, I would definitely be walking into that trap door. But beyond that, I really love music. I think in my past life, everyone thought I was going to be a DJ at some point, but here I am.
Awesome.
Well, are we a white or a red?
We're definitely red.
Oh, okay. You know
Yeah,
you're a
we
really
try to.
serious wine person when you say red. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. We try to deceive ourselves we're staying healthy by drinking red, but at the end of the day, one bottle could be two.
Whatever you need to tell yourself. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, Veronica, I think you have helped us lift up like a rock and look underneath it in a way that people around us haven't been talking about, but is very real, which means it ends up like the monster in the closet that you can't see, that is absolutely scaring the bejesus out of students as they head into the work world, but they don't actually know what's scaring them. They just know the market is weird. Like weird
Yeah.
AF weird. And you're helping us bring that monster out of the closet. It doesn't change that there's a monster. There is 100% a monster in recruitment right now. But the more we understand about it, the more we can do something about it, the more we can be intentional. You said recruitment is intentional, which to me means candidates, students now have to match it with intentionality. But you
Yes.
can't do that if you don't understand the environment that you're in. So
Yes.
you blessed us with like a gift of your time and your knowledge in an area, to your point, we don't know you very well. You came haphazardly through some fun connections to land at our podcast doorstep. You didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to spend time creating relationships here and imparting this wisdom on students you don't know, but you did. And you did that with I get this sense of just caring for true humans, true candidates who are looking for a job, and that you want to do whatever you can, like you said at the very top of this, to match good people to the right role. So thank you for
Yes.
doing that here with us.
Thank you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's always exciting to be able to share my story and to also help, advocate, advice wherever I can. I'm just one LinkedIn button away and one call away or one email buzzer away.
We appreciate that. And maybe if you're willing, maybe we'll link your LinkedIn in the show notes so people can connect with you. Real humans can
Yes,
connect with you.
please.
We will
Yes,
do that.
please. I would never say no to new connections. Thank you so much for having
You're
me
welcome.
today.
You're welcome. Take care and happy CIA MI5 hunting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, key takeaways, which I think the entire podcast was not only key takeaways, but perhaps new takeaways of things that we haven't talked about quite in this way. So that was fascinating, first off, for me. But so I think I said the sentence, but it was built off of everything she said of never has it been more important to sell that we are human. Yeah. We used to sell skill sets, experience, but right now, you need to be visible. I loved her word. You need to be visible. And how can we, with that visibility, be visible on different platforms? Because no longer is visibility on a piece of paper working. That's not visibility anymore. And so how do you figure that out? Know how to showcase it. And I'm going to add on her last sentence. Advocating for yourself isn't egotistical. It's information.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Love that.
Yep.
For me, what kept ringing through true for me is a phrase, know your competition. Your competition is no longer humans. It is humans and AI and these deep fake people things, whatever you want to call it, entities, right? Assets, whatever. When I think about it, I'm a big sports person. I think knowing who you're going to play against, knowing the people or the things that you're up against is going to be very important. And I actually, we said this to her off kind of record, but it was, I don't look at this as the monster in the closet. I almost look at it as the opportunity that I now know more information about, and I can take this opportunity. And knowing the competition allows me to really take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of me. And that could be connecting with people. It could be making some cool reels on Instagram or making a TikTok account or whatever it means to have you show up in a way that to your point, comes across as very human. So know your competition is the thing that I think I'm taking away from that.
Yeah, if we can bring it out and shine a light on it, then you do something about it.
Exactly.
Which is pretty cool. And what a new light we've kind of shone, I think, out of anything that we've talked about in the last 90 some odd episodes. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, we take a week off next week. I'm headed to Upper Bound, talk about AI. I'm headed to the Amy Upper Bound conference next week. So I'm going to come back with a whole bunch, hopefully, new AI information in my brain. But then we get a lovely conversation around empathy and leadership, which I think is be really cool. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.